say anything, I'm going to presume that you're recording and start in just about 5-10 seconds.
Hold on, sorry. Now I'm recording. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. I figured you would definitely cut me off if you weren't. So, all right. The human condition can be defined as our effort to find a common ground, a shared mutual experience from which we can build understanding. And so with that in mind, I wanted to talk to you today about the one thing with which I am sure we all have intimate experience: the toilet. Washroom, powder room, bathroom, restroom, the water closet, latrine, the outhouse, the house of honor, can, John, privy, the head, the throne, and the shitter. This is not going to be a complete history of human sanitation, because that is the history of human civilization. Instead, I wanted to talk to you briefly about the history of the toilet and about our cultural fascination with the things that happened there. The first in-house toilet was built in roughly the year 4500 in the Indus River Valley. Georges Antonion of the Sustainability magazine describes it as having a dedicated room, terracotta pipes that could be flushed with water, and would be carried to a central sewage system for the whole town and then dumped into a nearby body of water. In ancient Egypt, they had sandstone toilets that they would fill with sand to preserve water. And no, I am not taking this picture out of context. In Han Dynasty of ancient China, they had, in the rural areas, they would have toilets that would feed directly into pigsties, so as to preclude the need for removal infrastructure at all. Bonus points: bacon and pig manure, which they used as a fertilizer. In ancient Rome, as described by the Archaeology of Sanitation in Rome and Italy, they had public bathrooms, and unfortunately, I am not referring to the fact that nearly anybody could use them. They were literally public bathrooms. It was apparently a very social affair for the times. Science Focus magazine describes the first modern flush toilet as being invented in 1596 by Sir John Harrington, and not, as is commonly believed, by Thomas Crapper. And yes, those actually are their real names, though Thomas Crapper was the first person to suggest that we put a place to wash your hands in the same place where we kept the toilet, and the facility has remained little changed since then. Moving on from the business of doing our business, though, cultures throughout history have been fairly well fascinated with all things night soil. There's a recent magazine article in the Smithsonian Magazine about excavations in Pompeii that show that they were very focused on entertainment, where they used the restroom, and it was usually of the lewd and crude variety. Before phones rescued us in modern times, there were entire industries devoted to giving us things to do while on the loo. And our fascination with the subject doesn't end where we do the do, as it were. There is a 2004 BBC article that describes that year a vote which took place to name the most influential modern art piece of all time. The winner was a piece by Marcel Dunlap made in 1917. It is a urinal on its side, signed R. Mutt. The original has since been lost, but authorized replicas have sold for nearly $2 million. Next time you think that you don't have any artistic talent, remember that might just be a load of bull. And yes, so it seems that in the end, the need to see a man about a horse and drop the kids off at the pool might just be a part of our shared human experience. You could even say that human history could be traced by our need to find a particularly pleasant place to poo, and that our minds have always been in the gutter. So over this next week, as you spend your on average 2 hours of time on the pot, if you feel guilty for having a giggle at some potty humor, I just want you to remember R. Mutt and flush those thoughts down the drain. Thank you. All right.
Fantastic. Great job.
Okay. I don't know how to unshare, so let's see here. I'm just going to say
you
no.
did it. You're
Okay,
good.
cool. There we go.
Cool. Well, I guess I'll just jump right into mine, which honestly I don't feel like is too far removed from your subject. Maybe the connection I'm making there. So.
Well, apparently it's connected to just about everything from what I found. So.
Well, that's yeah.
All right.
That's true.
I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. Blank screen to start off with. Okay. I'm just gonna set a timer because that helps my brain. Okay. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that over half of us, though it's just you, over half of us in the world cannot live without. Something that has long been one of the most valuable exports of the global South. Something that symbolizes industry and free speech and shared ideas and hard work. Yes, folks, we're talking about coffee. I would like to explore with you the process from farm to cup. We know how coffee fits into our lives, but what is the life of coffee? So when we think about where coffee comes from, we think about Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, the grocery store, maybe the corner coffee shop. But what if I said Ethiopia or Rwanda, maybe Honduras, Guatemala, even Yemen? These are the true origins of coffee. Most coffee is grown between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, hovering right around the equator. And historians believe that before it was drunk as a beverage, it was actually chewed for its stimulating effects. And it was discovered in southern Ethiopia, close to the border of Sudan. As the story goes, coffee was long enjoyed in Ethiopia before it made its way over to the Arabian Peninsula, where it was continued to be cultivated before it was shipped to Europe, where many scholars loved this new item, while there was a lot of disdain from detractors who looked at it as a bitter invention from Satan. So after a quick origin story, we can look at how coffee grows. So Cafe Arabica, not to be confused with Cafe Robusta, the burnt tire tasting brother of Cafe Arabica that finds its way into Nescafe canisters around the world, Cafe Arabica requires high altitudes in the range of 3,000 to 6,000 feet. So let me move that. With lower oxygen levels, the bean develops more slowly and gets a sweeter and denser flavor, which is what we really want out of our beans. So after the growth process, it moves into, oh, sorry. Oh no, I got my cards mixed up. Okay, so now that we've seen where the plant comes from, we are going to talk about how it grows. So it grows as a small tree or a shrub. It has waxy leaves, honeysuckle type blooms, and those blooms eventually turn into a fruit, which are about the size of a cranberry. And at the core of the cranberry are the coffee beans. So after we see how it's grown, it's also important to see how we process it. So processing coffee is important because it dries the bean out, which is necessary before it goes on to roasting. Gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay. So the first coffee process that I'm going to be talking about is the natural process. And the natural process, it takes the coffee fruit and it's usually done on site at the farms. The fruit is laid out across brick patios or on mesh beds, and it's turned periodically to prevent molding. And then it's moved on to the depulper, where the actual fruit of the bean is removed and then continues to dry out. The other two methods are the washed and the honey process method. The washed method is essentially it just goes straight into turbulent water and it removes the fruit immediately and it just leaves the bean. So, and the honey process is somewhere in between the wash process and the natural process. So the wash process, you get a little bit more of a cleaner flavor from the coffee. It almost has a tea-like body, whereas the naturally processed coffee, it really retains the flavor of the coffee fruit itself. So after processing, the beans have to move on to the roasting. So there are multiple different methods for roasting. For specialty coffee, a lot of folks like to do a little bit of a lighter or a medium roast. And what this does is accentuates the fruity flavors in the coffee, where more traditional roasters, Italian or French style roasters, are going to give it the smoky or deeper flavors, those more kind of traditional flavors that we associate with coffee. And then on to maybe arguably the most important step of coffee, brewing. And there are so many different brewing methods. and so many different traditional brewing methods. There's drip coffee, cold brew, percolators, AeroPresses, breakies, espresso machines. I mean, it's endless, too many. But what's necessary in brewing coffee is water. What water allows in coffee is the extraction of the flavor and the extraction of the caffeine. So I leave you with this information, hoping that the next time you're drinking a cup of coffee, you can really imagine that journey from the farm to the cup, from a fruit on a tree in the tropics onto the processing plant, shipped across the world, finding its way to a roaster, and then finding its way to you, ground, pressed, and in a cup. So the last question to ask is, do you take any cream with that? So thank you. Yay! Thanks for listening. I cannot believe that I got my cards mixed up. It was just silly.
You know what? I almost did that. I was doing one last little walkthrough before we started, and I found half of my cards the wrong way around, and back. So I was like, oh yeah. So I feel like
they're almost like a hindrance, but you know, it was what it was, and I pushed.
I prefer not even to use them, but I'm trying to, do the spirit of the class. So.
Yeah, me too. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, and I will compress both of the files from yesterday and today. I'll get them uploaded, and I'll email everybody when I do so.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really wish I had a siphon brew. I love coffee.
Oh, right on. I'm glad that, and I'm sure now you can see the connection in between what I was
talking
about.
Yeah, no. As soon as you said coffee, I was like, gotcha.
Yeah, got it. All right,
But,
right on.